Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down the core ideas from a book that honestly changed how we think about, well, thinking. I'm talking about Daniel Kahneman's masterpiece, Thinking Fast and Slow. All right, let's just dive right in.
So, to get us started, I've got a really simple question for you. Just take a look at these two lines on your screen. Which one's longer?
Now your mind is probably screaming that the bottom line is longer. And look, you probably know this is a trick, right? You could get out a ruler and prove to yourself that they are in fact exactly the same length. But here's the crazy part. Even when you know the truth, you can't stop yourself from seeing one as longer than the other.
What you're experiencing here isn't just some visual glitch. It's a cognitive illusion. It's like getting a little peek behind the curtain at how your mind operates. And it really makes you wonder, right? What is actually going on in there?
Well, Kahneman's big idea, the key to all of this, is that our thinking is run by two very different characters that live inside our heads. He calls them System 1 and System 2.
So, take a look at this woman's face. You didn't have to think about it, did you? You instantly knew she is angry. You might have even thought she's about to say something unkind. It just happened to you. That is fast thinking.
Okay, now for this. What is 17 times 24? Feel that difference? It's like your brain just slammed on the brakes and had to shift gears. You immediately recognize it's a multiplication problem and you know you could solve it, but man, it's going to require some deliberate, effortful work. That is slow thinking.
And these two examples perfectly illustrate the two systems. System 1 is kind of the hero of our story. It's fast, automatic, intuitive, and it runs the show most of the time. System 2, well, it's like the powerful but really lazy supporting character. It only steps in for the really tough stuff.
So, System 1 is always on. It's constantly generating suggestions for System 2, things like impressions, intuitions, intentions, and feelings. It's the voice of your gut reaction.
And here's the crucial point. System 2's job is to be the fact checker, the final authority. But remember, it's lazy. So more often than not, it just takes System 1's suggestions and rubber stamps them without much scrutiny at all.
So, let's move on and see how this builds. Because here's the twist. Our hero, System 1, has a fatal flaw. To be so incredibly fast, it has to rely on mental shortcuts. And those shortcuts lead to predictable mistakes. We call these cognitive biases.
Let's take the halo effect. If a speaker is really handsome and confident, we automatically just assume their ideas are smarter without even realizing we're doing it. That's System 1 creating a simple, coherent story. Looks good, must be smart.
Then you've got something called the availability heuristic, which explains so much about our fears. A heuristic is just a fancy word for a mental shortcut. And this one means we judge how likely something is by how easily an example pops into our head.
So, let me ask you, which do you think is a more frequent cause of death, strokes or all types of accidents combined? Now, if you're like most people, your gut, your System 1, screamed accidents. Why? Well, because dramatic news stories about crashes and disasters make those events super vivid and emotionally charged, which makes them really easy to recall. They're highly available in your memory. But the statistical reality? It's not even close. Strokes are a far, far more common cause of death. Your intuition was fooled. It was basing its answer on what was more available in your memory, not what was more probable in reality.
And maybe the most powerful bias of all is one that Kahneman gave this great acronym, YSIAT. It stands for what you see is all there is.
What this means is that our mind is a master storyteller, but honestly a pretty terrible statistician. It confidently builds a coherent story from the few pieces of information it has right in front of it, while completely ignoring the vast amount of information it's missing. This one bias explains so much of our overconfidence in what we think we know.
So, what's the takeaway here? Is System 1 the villain of the story? Not at all. We literally couldn't survive without it. The real key is to learn how to manage the collaboration between the two systems. It's not about distrusting your gut, but knowing when it's time to double-check it.
You know, Kahneman argues that one of the best reasons to understand all these biases is to improve the quality of our conversations, what he calls our gossip. When we have names for these errors, like the halo effect, we can spot them more easily in other people and maybe, just maybe, in ourselves.
So how can we actually do better? Well, it's kind of a three-step process. First, you have to recognize the signs that you might be about to make a mistake. Are you making a snap judgment? Is emotion driving the decision? Second, just force yourself to slow down. Don't just accept that first intuitive thought. And third, you have to consciously engage your lazy system too. Ask it simple questions like, what evidence am I missing here? Or what's the opposite point of view?
Look, the goal here isn't to become some kind of perfectly rational robot. It's about becoming a wiser human, someone who's equipped with the language to question your own thinking and make slightly better decisions.
And that leaves us with one final thought. After hearing all of this, which system are you using to process it right now? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.